Dane, appreciate you making some time for us this morning. We've seen Arkansas have a high level of success at home, as has Kentucky, as has Auburn, and Tennessee inside of Thompson-Boling Arena is undefeated this season. What type of atmosphere, what type of environment are the Razorbacks and Eric Musselman walking into tomorrow?
Well, a lot of similarities to Bud Walton Arena. It's going to be a checkerboard atmosphere where, like Arkansas, Tennessee has reeled off some big-time wins at home recently. When you think about Auburn, when you think about Kentucky, that's what Arkansas has also done. Even earlier in the year, Tennessee took down Arizona. And so this is and they've got revenge factor. Both these teams are hoping to tie for first in the SEC. If they can win this game, then they're going to turn the TV on and hope Auburn takes an upset to South Carolina. And so all these, I tell you, the Jungle at Auburn, of course, Rupp Arena, Bud Walton Arena, and Thompson-Boling Arena have separated themselves this year, man. It's been great TV. I've had the pleasure of calling some of those games. And so they brought it, and it's been a big-time home court advantage. And if you used to think, at least for me, I'm throwing out a random number, that home court, it gives you about a +6 going into the game. Those four places feel like, you walk into the game thinking you're down 10 already.
Dane, one of the guys that has separated himself, at least last week, and at points this season is Kennedy Chandler. And the former number one recruit of this past class, number one point guard for Rick Barnes, has had some games this season where you just watch him and you're just like, wow. What kind of game do you expect him have? He didn't have a major impact against Arkansas in game one. Could he have a bigger impact in game two tomorrow at home?
Yeah, I think he will. I think one thing he'll do, too, is just be pretty careful not to float in the air. Jalen Williams so good at getting those charges. That's another thing to keep an eye out for. I know Tennessee was not happy the last time. And so if it's a 50-50 call, this time around, is Arkansas going to get the benefit of that? Despite Jalen Williams' great reputation as a defender, I think the complaints are starting to come in like, hey, wait a minute, this dude's getting every whistle. And for Tennessee fans, you got the benefit of that a few years ago. Grant Williams was a big man in the SEC that had a reputation of always getting to the free throw line, kind of like a Scottie Pippen Jr. now. And so the reputation precedes them. But, will the officials start to give maybe a little bit reluctance into giving them the benefit of the doubt each time in? And that really hurt Tennessee last game. They had their top three scorers, Josiah Jordan-James, I believe, was also in foul trouble, Santiago Vescovi, and Kennedy Chandler. But Coach Musselman does such a good job with their personnel scattering report that, Tennessee runs all this motion and back cutting, and you got to defend that. The bottom line is when player A has the ball, what does he like to do when he has it in his hands? Left, right, if you cut him off, is he going to give it up or is he going to force it? And Coach Muss has these guys locked in right now, and they're going to need a terrific defensive effort once again.
Dane, I remember last time we talked with you, you were kind of joking about Chris Lofton, how you said your stats were elevated because you were playing with such a lethal shooter and just a great ball player. And I wonder, watching J.D. Notae, now I know Chris is probably the better shooter off the bounce and just coming off screens, but I wonder if you see any similarities from your old college teammate and the way that JD has been so devastating for opposing teams this season.
No, I can't. Look, two great players there, but I think they're both quiet. They're both fearless. They walk the walk more than they talk the talk. Two low maintenance guys. Like J.D. Notae, Chris Lofton isn't needing to bring a whole posse on a recruiting trip and steak dinners and all that other stuff, just humble kids. But in terms of game type, they want the ball in their hands at the end. But, Chris was never a point guard, and that hurt him a little bit. He just wasn't able to bring the ball up the court, initiate the offense. But he's the greatest contested three-point shooter I've ever seen, and that remains true to this day. Whereas J.D. Notae, a little bit more in attack mode and facilitator and all those other things. So outside of that, that's where I would probably leave that at. But I do know that they both want the ball in their hands at the end, and their guys look to them and they're both really easy guys to cheer for, and almost impossible to have jealousy inside the locker room when they're such likable type personalities.
Dane, this is Clay. When you see what LSU did to take the ball away from Notae, they played 2.5 men to him, and it turned some other guys loose. Do you see Rick Barnes doing that in this game Saturday?
Maybe a little bit, but I think that was such a key game for guys like Notae and others to step up and say, hey, if a team's game plan is make the other guys beat you, then we will. And so it didn't really give them, even though they had it down to a one-possession game, but, so did Auburn. Tennessee shot it horribly and still were, within striking distance. I don't see that. If anything, what I noticed in that Kentucky game towards the end, J.D. Notae was getting so many things all the way to the basket with his right hand, just all the way right. And finally they started trying to force him to the left. It's not that he can't go left, but like a lot of players that are right-handed, you are comfortable going right all the way to the basket. You just have a stronger hand. You can finish that way. Whereas if you go left, your tendency is to pull up for the jump shot. J.D. Notae is similar in that regard. And so to try to keep Arkansas off the free throw line and try to keep him out of the paint, you just got to try to sit on that right hand a little bit more. Easier said than done with all the screens and the misdirection that he can do and the way they put him in a good position. But to me, it's about where you send him to on the court and where the help is going to be, as opposed to such a blatant double team. Although, can't fault Will Wade for trying something different. Nothing else has worked.
So you're the analyst. The people of Arkansas, including me, have struggled to understand the NET, the net. I need you to explain it for the state of Arkansas. What's going on here?
Oh, man. You're going to put me on the spot because, heck, I don't know. I trust the computer rankings and all those other things. You figure the formulas are there. It's been interesting, too, maybe not just on Arkansas, but, for example, the way Florida beat Auburn, and they were on the first four out, and they only jumped up a couple spots.
Yeah.
Like, man, you would have thought that would have given them a little more leeway. But the Arkansas resume, it speaks for itself. I would not be surprised, though, that despite all the rankings, the net, and not to dodge your question too much, but the committee's also got to look at that eye test. And while they might not sit there and say they no longer look at your last 5 games, it's the entire body of work, you just can't deny who Arkansas is right now. And they had a 3-4 week window around Christmas time where it's almost like they took an extended Christmas break despite having to play a few games during it. But outside of that, they've been near perfection. And so I think Arkansas is, would be one of those things where maybe Joe Lunardi says, look, that based on the numbers, they're a 5 seed, but come Selection Sunday, they get the last 4 seed or something of that nature.
So we've got a lot of focus on how teams are going to go seeded to the NCAA and the SEC tournament, but just wipe that away and tell me the SEC teams that you think can make say a Sweet 16 run or even a Final Four run. Do we have a team like that this year?
We do. I think that those top 4 teams have separated themselves so well. Here's the tricky part to analyze. You guys may struggle with it too, is the home court has been so great for Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, that you get one extreme there. But you also get the extreme of when those teams go on the road, they're playing against these packed houses with a target on their back, and it's bringing the best out of their opponents. So you get that extreme. So I'm anxious to get all these teams on a neutral court. And, like if Arkansas loses to Tennessee, even by double digits on Saturday, my opinion of Arkansas will not decrease in any way. I think they're due a bad game, and I know what kind of environment they're walking into. However, if they win that game, my opinion of them will certainly increase to where instead of Sweet 16, maybe Elite 8, you're like, you know what? Time to commit to the fact that this team is every bit as good as a Final Four team. And so I'm anxious to just get to Tampa, get these guys on a semi-neutral court, which has been compelling basketball in the SEC. When I started with the network, 2014, it was not compelling basketball to the SEC tournament. It was Kentucky, Florida, and you were hoping the third team didn't blow it and get on the outside of the bubble. Now it's no longer just the Kentucky Invitational at the SEC tournament, and Arkansas is a big reason for that.
Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Ty, but I just wanted to tell you that, and I know I speak for some other Arkansas people, that we enjoy having you call the Arkansas games, and we think you do a terrific job, and appreciate you coming on the show with Ty and I today.
Well, I appreciate that too. I know you're the expert, Ty. You got a lot to learn from with Clay there. He's got the experience. You got to look at the seasoned veteran. That's what I do.
I have picked up since I started in this industry back in 2014, Dane. I've got 8 years and semi-working with Clay in some capacity or around that. So I've tried to pick up a thing or two. He gives me a hard time every once in a while, but that's part of it.
Well, a little birdie may have teed me up to make a comment like that, but I will never throw my sources on the spot.
Okay. I gotcha.
Sandbagged you.
Yeah.
Man, he just fell right into that, didn't he? Didn't he, Dane?
It's part of being the youngin. You get a little crap, but that's okay. Dane.
Well, when you bring on one of my friends, you gotta know that it's coming.
Well, I did that for you, Clay. I knew you were coming on with us today, so I was like, well, it's Tennessee. Dane's player, SEC Network analyst. It just fits. But Dane, Clay's asked some good questions, and I'll kind of go off his final one, and we'll leave it here with this team, Arkansas, and he asked about the Final Four. Arkansas's best wins this season outside of the LSU road win have come at home. Are you willing to, at this point in time, prior to tomorrow, or maybe you have to kind of wait and see how they fare in Knoxville, or maybe you have to wait and see how they fare in Tampa? Because this team last year I felt like could make a Final Four, but they ran into the best team in college basketball in Baylor, and we don't have that alpha dog this year. Based on what you've seen, based on how this team is as hot as any team in the country, are you willing to say that Arkansas is worthy and has potential to wind up in New Orleans this year?
I am. I think that narrative really was put to rest probably, 3 or 4 weeks ago. They had won 8 out of 9, I think it was, and it wasn't necessarily about who they were beating, but how they were beating them. And but the true quality wins weren't quite there. But then they beat Auburn, and then they backed that up with Tennessee, Kentucky. And so the proof has been there. And yes, the home court has been a factor, but that doesn't mean that they're not playing great basketball. And I tell you, Arkansas, like Tennessee, Kentucky, they're wavering a little bit defensively, but Auburn as well. These teams, what makes them great and what makes me think they can make a long run is the fact that their defense is so good they can withstand these long scoring droughts. I mean, you can, and Arkansas is a great example too of not just that, but when they get down, they don't flinch, and they think they're going to win every close game. And you just got to have that mentality. And these teams have that. They have star power. J.D. Notae is a star. Jalen Williams is a star. These guys know their roles. They've got good role players. Devo Davis is now playing much better basketball. They're now better on the court when Devo Davis is on the court. That was a concern a month or so ago. It's not anymore. My biggest concern is, like it always is going to be under Coach Musselman, and that's just a lack of depth because of the short rotation. Doesn't mean they don't have quality players, but guess what? If Jalen Williams gets called for 2 blocks in the first 5 minutes, that's a problem. And then they're throwing different defensive mixes at J.D. Notae. That's an issue. And so it's concerns for you could go down a list of concerns of what else for every team, but Arkansas certainly has shown the pieces to be a Final Four team.
Well, we'll see if they can end up being that in the next couple weeks. Dane Bradshaw, SEC Network analyst, former Tennessee Volunteer, kind enough to give us about 15 minutes of his time this morning. Dane, appreciate it, and thanks for ribbing me a little bit this morning, too.
Thanks, Dane.
I need it.
Hey, anytime, guys. You guys just keep learning from Clay there as best you can. Take notes, shadow him as much as you can. And by next year when I'm on this call with you guys, I'm expecting better questions from the young guy.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. That's the bar has been.
It might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pros and college hoops. For all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. That's promo code BLEAV. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds right to the Olympic coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.